Disclaimer: this video explores mature emotional themes and complex family dynamics. There is no explicit content, but viewer discretion is advised. It started like any other quiet Tuesday night. The kind where the hum of the refrigerator and the clink of cutlery in the sink feel louder than usual. My husband was out working late, and the house was still too still. I was rinsing out a coffee mug when I sensed someone behind me. I turned slightly and saw him standing there, just inside the doorway. My stepson, Jake. He's 23, fully grown, respectful, kind, just quiet. Always quiet. He's not the kind of guy to linger where he isn't needed, and the kitchen, up until that night, had never been his space. I figured maybe he wanted a snack, or maybe he was just passing through. But he didn't move. He just stood there, staring at me like he had something to say but wasn't sure how to say it. "You okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. I grabbed a towel to dry the mug, suddenly more aware of the silence between us than the dishes in my hand. He nodded, then shook his head, then finally said, "Can I talk to you?" That sentence, that tone, made me set the mug down. Something about the way he said it, low, tense, almost like it hurt, snapped me to full attention. "Of course," I said, stepping aside so he could sit at the kitchen island. But he didn't sit. He paced, one hand running through his hair, the other gripping the back of a chair. His usual calm demeanor was cracked wide open, and whatever he'd been holding inside was fighting to get out. Now let me be clear, I've been his stepmother for almost 6 years. His dad and I married when Jake was 17. I never tried to be his mom, never overstepped, never forced anything. I gave him space. And in return, I got politeness. Distant kindness. Enough to make family dinners smooth, but never deep. We coexisted, and I thought that was enough. Until that night. "I've been carrying something," he said finally, voice tight. "For a while now. And I don't know how else to say it, but I can't keep doing this." "Doing what?" He looked at me then, really looked at me. And I felt my breath catch. His eyes were rimmed red, but not from anger. There was something else. Something I hadn't seen in him before. Vulnerability. Fear. "I didn't come in here to make things awkward," he said. "But I can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not." He paused. Let the words hang there. My heart was pounding. Not because I thought he was angry. No, because something deeper was happening. Something real. And whatever it wasn't small. I took a step closer, gently. "Jake, whatever it is, you can tell me." He exhaled, finally sitting down at the island. His hands were clenched in his lap. He looked down, then up, and then he spoke his truth. But I wasn't ready for what he said next. He didn't say it all at once. It came out in pieces, like he was afraid the whole thing would hit too hard if it landed too fast. "I've been struggling with how I see you," Jake started, not quite meeting my eyes. "For years. Since you married Dad." That made my chest tighten. I leaned on the counter, steadying myself. "Okay," I said quietly. "Go on." "It's not that I didn't want you around," he said quickly, maybe too quickly. "You were kind. You never pushed. And honestly, that made it harder." "Harder how?" Jake exhaled slowly. "Because it made it impossible to hate you." The words caught me off guard. He looked ashamed the moment he said them. "I tried to. I thought I had to. You weren't my mom, and I didn't want anyone trying to be. But you didn't try. And I think that's what messed with me." I took that in. It wasn't what I expected, but it wasn't rejection either. It was more complicated. "I just figured you didn't want a connection," I said. "So I stayed in my lane." He nodded. "I know. But even then, you still felt present. Like you saw everything. You knew when I was off, even when Dad didn't. You made space, and I didn't know what to do with that." There it was, that unspoken tension that had quietly hummed beneath the surface of our blended family for years. It wasn't coldness between us. It was distance built on confusion, misread intentions, and carefully tiptoed boundaries. Jake looked up, his jaw tense. "When Mom died, I shut down. You came in not long after, and I wasn't ready for anyone to fill that space. I wasn't trying to, I said, softly but firmly. I know, he replied. But the timing, the pressure. It felt like betrayal to even like you. His voice cracked on the last word. This wasn't just about us. This was about grief. Loyalty. Identity. Jake hadn't just lost his mother. He'd lost the blueprint for how to be a son after that. And then there I was, showing up in a house with a teenage boy who didn't know if he was allowed to feel safe with me. He rubbed his hands together, clearly bracing for more. A few months ago, when you checked in on me after that job interview I bombed. I didn't tell Dad, but I broke down after you left. Not because I failed. Because I realized you actually cared. And that made me feel something I've been trying to ignore for years. What did you feel? Jake looked straight at me. Like you were the only one who really saw me. And that terrified me. That sentence hit harder than any confession could have. I didn't say anything right away. I wasn't sure what would help and what might break whatever fragile honesty he'd just handed me. But I knew this wasn't a moment to fix anything. It was a moment to witness it. I don't need you to be my mom, he said. But I need to stop pretending you don't matter to me. Silence. That kind of emotional truth doesn't come wrapped in perfect resolution. It lands awkward and raw, sitting heavy in the room. I walked over, slow, careful, and placed a hand on his shoulder. I've always been here, Jake. Even when you didn't know what to do with me. He nodded, jaw clenched, eyes glassy. And then, from down the hallway, the front door opened. My husband was home, and he had no idea what he was about to walk into. My husband, Eric, stepped into the kitchen still wearing his blazer, briefcase slung over his shoulder, phone in hand. He paused when he saw us, me standing next to Jake, one hand on his shoulder, both of us silent, raw. He looked between us, eyebrows tightening. Everything okay? Jake didn't say anything. His jaw was set again, walls going back up. I could feel him slipping back into that guarded version of himself, the one Eric knew best. The quiet, steady son who kept his emotions buried deep enough to pass for fine. I straightened up, slowly dropping my hand. We were just talking, I said carefully, about some old things. Eric placed his briefcase down with a heavy thud and gave a half smile. That sounds serious. It kind of is, Jake said. His voice was flat, but I could tell how hard he was working to stay composed. Eric nodded, like he didn't want to pry, but his body language had shifted, just enough to notice. He walked to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and cracked it open. The sound echoed more than it should have. It wasn't that Eric didn't care. He just didn't always know how. He was a good man, a provider, but when it came to emotions, especially Jake's, he treaded carefully, sometimes too carefully. He never pushed, and Jake never offered. Their father-son relationship was built more on habit than connection. And now, Jake had come to me. Not his dad. Me. Eric leaned against the counter and finally asked, "Everything okay between you two?" Jake looked at me before answering. "It's not about us." Not exactly. That was enough to stir something in Eric's eyes. He set the bottle down and crossed his arms. "What does that mean?" Jake took a breath, his fingers tapping restlessly on the island surface. "It means I've been carrying stuff around for years, and I finally told her." Told her what? Eric asked, clearly getting more alert. Not angry, yet, but cautious. That I never really processed Mom dying. That I shut myself down. And when you married again, I didn't know what to do with the space she left. Eric blinked as if those words caught him completely off guard. Maybe they did. "You never said any of that," he said, voice low. "I know," Jake replied. "Because I didn't think you could handle it." That stung. I felt it, and it wasn't even aimed at me. Eric's mouth tightened. "What makes you think I couldn't handle it?" Jake finally turned to face him. "Because you didn't. You moved forward like everything would just sort itself out. You gave me space, but sometimes space is just another way to say you didn't want to deal with it either." Eric stared at him, trying to absorb the hit without lashing back. I thought I was giving you room to grieve. You gave me room to disappear. That landed like a good punch. The tension between them was thick now, charged with years of silent misunderstandings and emotional deferrals. This wasn't just about the past anymore. This was about now. About the fact that Jake had found emotional ground with me, and not his father. Eric glanced at me, expression unreadable. Did you know all this? I hesitated. Some of it. Not until tonight. Jake stood. I didn't say all this to start something. I said it because I can't keep pretending we're this normal, functional family when we've all been emotionally sleepwalking for years. Eric didn't respond right away. He looked down, jaw tight, like he was fighting a dozen things he didn't know how to say. Then he said the last thing I expected. Well, maybe you should have come to me first. Jake stared at him. Yeah, maybe I should have. And then he walked out. Jake's footsteps faded down the hall. A door slammed, I assumed, but it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Just final. Eric stayed frozen by the counter, hands pressed flat against the surface, breathing like he'd just been hit but didn't want anyone to notice. I didn't speak. I knew better. He finally broke the silence. So this has all been brewing under my roof, and I'm just finding out tonight? I nodded once, slowly. It's not about blame, Eric. I'm not blaming you, he snapped, then winced like he hadn't meant to sound like that. I'm just confused. Hurt, maybe? I thought we were okay. Maybe we all thought that, I said, keeping my voice even. But clearly, Jake didn't feel that way. And he's not wrong. Eric turned to face me, eyes sharp now, not angry but defensive, wounded. So I failed him. Is that what you're saying? No. I'm saying we missed it. All of us. Jake included. No one's hands are clean here. He ran both hands through his hair, eyes darting toward the hallway like he wanted to follow Jake, but didn't know what he'd even say if he caught up. You know what stings the most? He asked. That he came to you. You, not me. I didn't ask him to, I said. He just did. He needed someone. I'm his father. That should have been me. There it was. The gut of it. I walked around the island, keeping my tone measured. I'd get that. But he came to me because he wasn't afraid I'd shut it down. Because he thought you might. Eric's face twisted in frustration. I've never shut him down. No, I said gently. You just never let him see you break either. That stopped him cold. You tried so hard to be strong, I continued. After his mom died, after I came into the picture, you held it together for everyone. But Jake needed to see your grief. He needed proof that you missed her, that you were scared too. Instead, you gave him silence and structure. He didn't know where he fit in that. Eric looked away, jaw tight, eyes glossing over just enough to be noticeable before he blinked it away. I thought I was doing the right thing. I know you did. We stood there in the heavy quiet, and I could feel something in him shifting, cracking. He looked like a man realizing he'd lost something he didn't even know he had to protect. I thought I gave him everything he needed, Eric said, almost to himself. And maybe you did, I replied. But he needed more than you knew how to give. At that moment, a voice broke through the silence. Jake's, from the hallway. I didn't come to you because I didn't trust you, Dad. We turned. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face pale but steady. I came to her because I didn't want to lose both of you. Eric stared at him, stunned. Jake's voice was calm, but every word carried weight. I figured if I messed it up with you, I'd never get you back. But if I told her first, maybe she could help me do it right. Eric took a shaky step forward. Jake, let me finish. Jake's voice rose, not loud, but forceful. You weren't the only one grieving. I lost my mom, yeah, but I lost you too, and I don't think I ever got you back. The room dropped into silence. Not awkward, just raw. Jake's eyes met mine for a second, just long enough to show he wasn't done. Then he looked at Eric. And what he said next would either break them apart for good or be the first step back. Jake's words sat heavy in the air. I don't think I ever got you back. Eric stood frozen, jaw clenched, eyes locked on his son's. For a second, it seemed like this was it, the moment. The raw truth out in the open, a path forward ready to appear. But then Jake shifted. Something in his face changed. His jaw tightened, not just from emotion, but from restraint. From holding something else back. I wasn't going to say this part, he muttered, voice quieter now, but even more dangerous in tone. I really wasn't. Eric took a cautious step forward. What part? Jake's eyes flicked to me. Then back to Eric. You didn't just move on quickly after Mom died. You lied to me. Eric's face darkened. Jake, what are you talking about? I found her emails, Jake said flatly. Months ago. From before she passed. Silence. I was clearing out her old laptop. You never did. There was a draft folder. I shouldn't have looked, I know that. But once I saw the subject lines, I couldn't stop. My pulse spiked. I didn't know where this was going, but Eric's face had gone pale. Jake kept going, his words sharper now. She knew. About you. And her. I blinked. Me? Jake shook his head. Not you. Before you. Someone else. Eric dropped his gaze, swallowing hard. Jake, you were already seeing someone before she died, Jake snapped. Weren't you? Eric didn't answer right away. Which said enough. Jake's voice cracked. Mom didn't just die, Dad. She died knowing that you were cheating on her while she was sick. I stepped back slightly stunned. I looked at Eric, desperate for some kind of denial, explanation, anything. He rubbed his face, took a breath. It was complicated. Don't do that, Jake said coldly. Don't sanitize it. Eric looked at me, defeated. It wasn't love. It was a mistake. One mistake. Except she knew, Jake shot back. She wrote about it. How betrayed she felt. How alone. And now I can't stop wondering if that's why you brought someone new into the house so fast. Not because you were grieving, but because you already had practice. The weight of that accusation landed hard. Eric was shaking his head now. That's not what happened. Jake's eyes narrowed. You sure? Because it would explain a lot. Why you buried everything. Why you avoided every hard conversation. Why you treated grief like a business transaction, one you'd already signed off on. I married her because I loved her, Eric said, nodding toward me. Because I was trying to build something out of the wreckage. Jake scoffed. Maybe. Or maybe you just didn't want to sit in the wreckage long enough to feel anything real. I was still processing. I'd had no idea. And now I didn't know who I was standing next to, Eric, the steady man I married, or Eric, the husband who betrayed a dying wife and buried it under structure and smiles. Jake looked between us. That's why I never talked. Because deep down, I already knew something was broken. And no one was ready to admit it. Eric stepped forward, finally breaking. Jake, I swear, it wasn't what it looked like. It ended before she passed. I stayed. I took care of her. You betrayed her. That word sliced through the room. Eric's hands fell to his sides. I made one mistake. You made two, Jake said. Eric froze. What? Jake's voice went deadly quiet. You lied to me. And with that, he turned again, this time toward the front door. But he wasn't just walking out of the room. He might have been walking out of this family for good. Jake had one hand on the front door handle when I called out, "Don't walk out like this." He paused, his shoulders still high with tension, but he didn't move. I walked toward him slowly, heart pounding in my chest. Eric stood behind me, saying nothing. "Jake," I said more gently this time, "you said you didn't come here to destroy anything. You came because you wanted to find a way through." He didn't turn around, but his voice came back, rough and tired. That was before I found out my dad wasn't who I thought he was. Eric stepped forward. I made a mistake. You made a choice, Jake snapped, spinning to face him. You made a series of choices that shattered everything, and now you're calling it a mistake because you got caught. Eric's voice cracked under the pressure. I stayed. I took care of her. I lived with that guilt every single day. Jake didn't flinch. Yeah? And I lived thinking you were the man she trusted until the very end. Do you know what it's like to rewrite your grief in real time? That silence was brutal. Eric tried again. If I could go back. You can't, Jake said. You can't go back. But you can tell me the truth. The whole truth. Not for her. For me. I stood between them now, the air between father and son electric and heavy. Eric sat down at the kitchen table, finally letting the weight of it hit him. It happened once, he said quietly. Months before her diagnosis. I was overwhelmed. Isolated. And stupid. When we found out she was sick, I cut it off immediately. She never confronted me, but she knew. I stayed with her. Every appointment. Every night. Every panic attack. I thought staying made up for it. Jake was silent. Listening, but unreadable. Eric looked up at him. I didn't marry your stepmom to cover anything up. I married her because she made this house feel like a place I could breathe again. But that doesn't mean I wasn't broken when I did it. It hung there. The truth. Finally spoken, finally raw. Jake exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. I think you did love her, he said, his voice shaking. I think that's why it hurt her so much. He let those words settle, then leaned against the doorframe. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, Jake added, eyes meeting Eric's. But I don't want to carry this weight around anymore. Eric nodded slowly. That's fair. And I'm not walking out, Jake continued. Not tonight. But I'm not staying because this is fixed. I'm staying because I want to know if it can be. I felt my chest loosen for the first time all night. No one cheered. No hugs. No sudden harmony. But it was real. It was forward. Then Jake turned to me. There's one more thing, he said, and his tone shifted, quieter, heavier. I didn't just come to talk to you tonight because I trusted you, he said. I came to you because Mom told me I could. I froze. What? Jake reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a worn, folded letter. She wrote it the week before she passed, he said. It was addressed to me and to you. He handed it to me, eyes glistening. She said, if anything ever happens and you don't know where to go to her. She'll love you, even when you don't know how to love yourself. I took the letter with shaking hands, heart pounding. And just like that, the final piece of her voice echoed into the room. We sat there in silence for a long time. No more shouting, no more accusations, just the weight of what had finally come out and the letter sitting in my lap. Jake's mother's words felt like a bridge across time, pulling all three of us into the same emotional space for the first time in years. Jake didn't ask me to read it aloud. He didn't need to. The fact that she'd written it at all said everything he'd been trying to express about love, about grief, about trust, about how someone can still take care of the people they leave behind. Eric sat quietly, staring at his hands like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to speak. I looked at him, and for the first time in a while, I didn't just see the man who hurt someone he loved. I saw someone trying to come back from it. Slowly, awkwardly, but trying. I'm not perfect, he said eventually. I made choices I regret. But I want to rebuild this family with both of you. If there's still a way. Jake didn't answer right away. But he nodded. Just once. And that was enough. That night didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the years of distance, the silent meals, the polite conversations that hid how much we'd all buried. But it cracked something open. It made space for truth. And in our house, that was a start. Over the next few weeks, things changed, not dramatically, but meaningfully. Jake didn't avoid the kitchen anymore. He didn't retreat to his room the second he came home. He'd hang back, help clean up, sometimes just talk. Nothing forced. One night, Eric asked him about his job search. Really asked. Not small talk, real interest. And when Jake shared the challenges, Eric actually listened. No advice. No fixing. Just listened. That was new. Jake and I had our own rhythm, too. We didn't talk about that night much, but it was always there, understanding without needing to repeat the details. Sometimes, it's not the words that heal. It's the presence. I read the letter again a few days later when I was alone. Her words were handwritten, messy in some places, like she was racing against time. But her heart was in every line. She hadn't asked me to take her place. She asked me to be there, to be something steady in the storm. That I could do. The truth is, no family is perfect. Stepfamilies come with complications most people don't see. The blended family dynamic isn't about replacing anyone. It's about learning to hold space for what was lost, while still making room for what's possible. And forgiveness, real forgiveness, doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means choosing to show up again anyway. So where are we now? We're healing. Together. Not perfectly, not quickly, but honestly. And that's more than I ever thought we'd have. And maybe that's the real takeaway here. It's never too late to say what should have been said years ago. Sometimes the scariest truth is the one that frees everyone. Thanks for sticking with this story all the way to the end. Now we want to hear from you. Did you enjoy this story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read everyone. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. Until next time, take care of your people, and don't be afraid to speak your truth.